Imagine you're buying popcorn at a movie theater. There are two sizes, a small for $5 and a large for $8. You don't need that much popcorn, so you look at the two choices and lean toward the small. Now imagine the theater changes the menu. The small is still $5. The large is still $8. Nothing about either option has changed, but now there's a medium for $7.50. You look again. Small, $5. Medium, $7.50. Large, $8. And suddenly, the large looks different. For only 50 cents more than the medium, you get considerably more popcorn. So you choose the large. But notice what just happened. The large didn't get cheaper. The small didn't get worse. Your appetite didn't change. The only thing that changed was the arrival of an option you probably weren't going to choose anyway. And yet, that option changed what you wanted. It may have been there for exactly that reason. Psychologists call this the decoy effect. It happens when adding a third option changes how we evaluate the choices that were already there. The decoy is usually inferior in a very particular way. It makes one option look obviously better by comparison. And that's what makes the effect so interesting. Because we like to imagine that value belongs to the thing we're evaluating. That $8 is $8. That a product has certain features. That one choice is worth more or less, regardless of what happens to be sitting beside it. But our minds don't always evaluate choices independently. We compare. And sometimes a choice that almost nobody wants can determine which choice everybody else suddenly does. Imagine choosing between two laptops. One is less expensive, but less powerful. The other costs more, but performs better. Which is the better choice? There may be no obvious answer. It depends on what matters to you. Price, performance, battery life, portability. When two options involve trade-offs, comparison becomes difficult. Neither one clearly wins. But now introduce a third laptop. It's almost as expensive as the powerful one, but slightly worse. Maybe it has less storage or a weaker battery. Suddenly, the expensive laptop has something it didn't have before: an easy comparison. You may still struggle to compare the expensive laptop with the cheaper one, but comparing it with the decoy? That's simple. One clearly dominates the other. And once one choice begins looking like a winner, that feeling can influence the larger decision. The decoy didn't make the product better. It made the product easier to recognize as better. And more than 40 years ago, researchers discovered just how much that can matter. In 1982, researchers Joel Huber, John Payne, and Christopher Puto published an experiment about something with a rather technical name: an asymmetrically dominated alternative. The idea was surprisingly simple. Give people choices that involve trade-offs, then add another option designed to be inferior to one particular choice, but not necessarily inferior to everything. In a perfectly consistent model of choice, adding an option nobody particularly wants shouldn't make an existing option more desirable. After all, nothing about that existing option changed. But behavior changed anyway. When researchers introduced the dominated alternative, people became more likely to choose the option that dominated it. Think about what that means. A choice can become more attractive without changing. No new feature, no lower price, no improvement at all. The environment around the choice changed, and with it, our perception of value. This became known as the attraction effect, or what we now commonly call the decoy effect. So why can an inferior option influence us? Part of the answer is comparison. Absolute value can be difficult to judge. How much should a laptop be worth? How large should a drink be? How much should a subscription cost? Often, we don't really know. But relative value is easier. We may not know whether $8 is reasonable for a large popcorn, but place a $7.50 medium beside it, and suddenly, $8 can look like a bargain. The decoy gives the mind a reference point, and more importantly, it gives one option a comparison it can clearly win. There's another advantage. It reduces ambiguity. When choices involve competing attributes, we have to decide which attributes matter most. That's work. But dominance feels simpler. This one is clearly better than that one. That small certainty can spill into a decision that was uncertain only moments before. And because the comparison feels obvious, the final choice can feel especially rational. That's the subtlety. The decoy effect doesn't necessarily feel like persuasion. It can feel like clarity. Once you understand the pattern, you begin noticing something interesting. Not every option needs to exist because someone expects you to choose it. Sometimes an option can affect a decision simply by being available. Think about pricing pages: basic, professional, premium, or different sizes, packages, memberships, and subscriptions. 3 options can look like 3 independent offers, but psychologically, they also form relationships. One establishes what cheap looks like. Another establishes what expensive looks like. And sometimes, one makes another look like the obvious value. That doesn't mean every 3-tier price menu contains a deliberate decoy. And it doesn't mean the effect works on everyone every time. Research suggests the effect depends on context and can weaken when people already have strong preferences. But it does mean something important. When we evaluate a choice, we aren't necessarily evaluating only the thing we might buy. We're also evaluating the comparisons we've been given. And whoever chooses those comparisons may influence which answer feels obvious. So, how do we protect ourselves? Not by distrusting every menu, and not by assuming every pricing structure is trying to manipulate us. Instead, change the comparison. If one option suddenly looks irresistible because another option sits beside it, mentally remove the other option. Then ask, would I still want this if that choice weren't there? Go back to what actually matters. What do I need? What am I willing to spend? Which features will I actually use? And perhaps most importantly, compare each option to your own criteria, not merely to the option someone placed beside it. Because the best choice shouldn't need a deliberately worse choice to become valuable. Think again about the popcorn. At first, you were choosing between small and large. Then the medium appeared. You probably didn't want it. You didn't choose it. Maybe almost nobody would. And yet, it changed the decision. That's the strange power of the decoy effect. Sometimes the most influential choice isn't the one we select. It's the one that changes how everything beside it looks. So the next time one option suddenly seems obviously better, look at the choice beside it and ask yourself, is that option really there for me to choose? Or is it there to help me choose something else?